Jeff, thanks for joining us on the podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Stephen? Lars?
We're doing all right. It's 80s here in Richmond, Virginia. So
Wow,
I've got all the
nice.
kids outside playing in the water, which is nice. Lars, how you
Excellent.
doing?
Great, fantastic. It's 67 in San Diego, slightly cloudy. We're doing all
I think
right.
there was one episode where you had a raincoat on and it kind of threw us for a loop, I think.
Actually, what was unexpected was the sound quality of our podcast was disrupted due to my rain jacket.
Yeah, that really impacted things. Well, Jeff, I'm excited for this conversation. I think I've been, watching Qnect for a little bit and enjoying kind of hearing more about your journey. And I think, and we'll kind of dive into some of those questions here in a second. But maybe, when I look at your background, it's pretty diverse, right? You've done a few different things in not just construction, but maybe on the industrial side of the construction industry, and also things just maybe not in construction at all. So maybe just to jump into it, and you can maybe start with a little bit of your background, but you've built these businesses in these different sectors, tech, maybe even biofuels, and now structural engineering. What's kind of the common thread that ties all those together?
Yeah, well, I've been asked that a few times. But I'll start by saying I'm Jeff Sharp, CEO and co-founder of Qnect. And it's great to be here with you, Stephen. We've known each other for a while, and it's always a pleasure talking with you about all kinds of crazy subjects. But anyway, to get to your question, what's the thread? I've always been an entrepreneur. I think entrepreneurship is the thread. Trying something new has never been something I've been afraid of. And in fact, it invigorates me. I like trying things new. I like building something from nothing, I guess. And in fact, um, moving from one industry to another is the way you learn more quickly than any other way, really, because you're just having to consume so much to get up to speed with a new industry that it's. I recommend it to people who have the tolerance for that and the strength to get through it because it's not easy. Sometimes you get into an industry, it, you're comfortable, you hang there, and before you know it, you're 70 years old and getting a trophy. And I guess I've just never taken that track.
I
But
mean,
I
it
could
is
tell you, you want
interesting.
me to tell you about my first software company?
How
Oh,
about even before that, Jeff? Like was it an uncle? Was it your mom or your dad? Like, what inspired you to go out and lean forward and become an entrepreneur? Yeah, this will be a good one.
Yeah, well, probably my first boss. Well, I don't know. I just sort of maybe have the DNA for it, but I had a boss who owned a restaurant. I went to work for him at age 14 as a dishwasher, and
Hmm.
he was just an incredible, inspiring person who believed in efficiency and he believed in, working smarter rather than harder, but working hard. And he wasn't easy on me at all. Um, but he's an incredible guy, and he also believed in giving back, which really showed me that by starting a business and having a business, it gives you opportunities to give people jobs. It gives you opportunities to, do things with your company that are positive for the planet and for other nonprofits and I started getting hooked on that. It's great to give back, and this is a tool that allows me to do that probably more than I could if I was, just getting some high salary somewhere.
I feel like that's a unicorn story. Working as a dishwasher at 14 at a restaurant for a gentleman that was just like a true servant leader, brought in, vision that inspired you to go build businesses. I haven't heard that story too many times, Jeff. That's incredible.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's cool. And he's one of the largest investors in Qnect, by the way.
Oh,
Yes, he's still
fantastic. So
around. That
stay
was
involved.
nice.
Yeah, no, we are friends now, and he's still giving back in incredible ways. He started this organization, Common Man for Ukraine, where he raises money and he takes it over and he gives it away to the kids, the children of war. And so he's not taking a side in the war, or he's not getting involved in any of that. He just, wants to take care of the kids because he
Yeah,
recognized that,
yeah,
wow, these kids are, they didn't deserve this.
yeah. They're being
That's
impacted for
incredible.
sure.
So So you've dishwasher, and then let's fill in a little bit of the gaps. So you are inspired to be an entrepreneur. Obviously, you've been in a few different kind of industries. How did you go? Like, how did you maybe gain the muscle and confidence to go do some of that? And then what was your first iteration of it?
Well, let's see. I went from dishwasher to manager eventually in that restaurant, and then I moved to New York, started a company, became an Inc. 500 screen printing company, and all along, I was had causes. I met Keith Haring. Uh, some of your listeners might know who that is, the famous pop artist in New York. Um, and I did a lot of the work for him, and I ended up raising a lot of money for one of his causes, and I just sort of got hooked on that, and then that led to a business called Excess Capacity, which was a online exchange for excess capacity, just like it sounds. Back in 2000, when the internet was just starting to go crazy, and that just seemed like a new, fresh, unique idea, and I went for it. And today excess capacity is like Uber, excess car capacity, or Airbnb is excess apartment capacity.
Mhm.
But imagine on a construction site, like an overhead crane that's not being used in between jobs. That's serious money. It's just sitting there,
Mhm.
idle. And if there was a marketplace in exchange for that, then it would not only make a lot of money, but it would utilize resources better, which has always been a passion of mine, is to be efficient with resources and people, and not just go out and make new stuff when there's perfectly good stuff that's available, that you could use for the job. So yeah, that's been a bit of a thread through my entrepreneur journey.
Well, he certainly came into the right industry around efficiency, if anything,
Yeah,
Steve.
yeah. There's
Well,
a couple
there's a little
challenges
bit.
that could use some efficiencies.
There's a little bit of room for
Just a little
improvement.
bit.
So
uh,
speaking of, um, when you look at Qnect and you look at kind of the problem it's solving, maybe you can one start with just kind of a high level, like
Yeah.
what Qnect is solving for, and then we'll maybe talk about what was the spark or what was the thing that helped you, start to solve that problem with Qnect.
sure. So in a nutshell, Qnect engineers and connects and models in a 3D model all the steel connections of a structure, and it does it with incredible speed, and incredible precision, and it opens up all kinds of opportunities because of that speed and precision to do it multiple times. We don't just connect a building once and say, okay, go ahead, steel fabricator, it's yours now. We connect it at least 10 times, and look at the differences between the bolt types and the connection types, and we look for efficiencies, and we bring those efficiencies to the project team and say, hey, do you want to do it this way? You'd save $300,000 if you use this size bolt instead of that size bolt, and that's kind of cool. And so we just kept going with that. It just kept going further and further, and we opened up more and more efficiencies, and we've got quite a ways to run still.
So, let me ask you a follow-up question to that. So as you're modeling it and then making sort of those recommendations around efficiencies, are you doing is the software doing the calculations to support that sort of recommendation?
Yeah, yeah, we're doing all the engineering. All,
Fantastic.
all the engineering is, ready to be PE stamped, and go to, I mean, it'll need a final check for constructability, but very rarely does anybody, make changes to those connections.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that it seems so obvious that we would have a kind of computer aided kind of perspective on connections. Um, that it's at times, you and I have had this conversation, Jeff. It's hard to understand what the constraints are to that not already existing. Um, but I know I know there are constraints. And I think we'll go into a bit of those here in a little bit. Um, but I guess as you look at where you're at in kind of the Qnect journey versus where you started in terms of being an entrepreneur, you're what, 4 years into this with Qnect? Well, 5 years. How long has it been?
No, no, it's closer. It's more than 10 years now, Stephen. We age, we age.
That's
I
incredible.
but I probably met you when I was like 5 years in or something. So for you, I could see why you would say 5 years.
Yeah, everything starts when I get involved. That's my view of time, Jeff.
That's
Um,
fair. That's fair. We should all have that view.
so I mean, I think I do want to talk about the why this isn't more prevalent already, but I think hearing about the origin story on the Qnext side, um, when you look at maybe at some of the projects that you're already starting to interact with, is are the project teams responding to the maybe earlier visibility that Qnect is now offering them? Like, what's been the market response to date with some of the project teams?
Yeah. So they love it. I mean, companies that use us are using us repeatedly, and that tells the whole story. Um, and why? Most I should say most of the players on most project teams love it. There are a few resistors, um, and and we can talk about that if you want. But the biggest benefits go to the owner, who saves time, money, and uh, and 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 delivers a more sustainable project. Um, and the EOR, who saves a lot of construction administration time, and just it makes his job easier, his or her job easier. The GC loves it for the amount of risk that we reduce, um, and the certainty that we bring to the project.
Mm.
And so yeah, they're totally on board, and are working with us on early connected models. So we have the software, but we also have this service that we call early connected models, and that delivers 100% of the early connected model.
Mm.
And so a lot of people like that because it's 100% deliverable. It's a whole product. And then some people use the software as a service, and that's fine too. We don't have a preference. We just want everybody to use it to get the benefits, to get all the advantages that we can bring: time, cost, carbon, and safety. We also bring a safety benefit, which if you want to go into that, I can in a little bit.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I think maybe one thing, as someone who generally doesn't believe mammals should be at very high heights and don't love being myself in very high places, there can be a misconception that more structural steel the better, and that being kind of an allowable narrative for what we would otherwise consider waste in the steel design. But when Qnect is kind of adding its layer of visibility around a re-engineered bolt design that can remove some of those bolts or any of maybe full connections that maybe aren't necessary, how do you respond to that maybe misconception in the industry that just more is generally better when it comes to structural?
Well, um, one engineer, told me one time, that we're okay with having so many extra bolts because you never know what the building is going to be used for in the future, you know. Well, that's fine. That's fine. As the engineer, design give me the loads that you want the building to, maybe be used for in the future. And for those loads, we will design the most optimized joint with the most optimized number of bolts.
Yeah. Well said.
And he didn't have a comeback for that. But you're not going to like design an airplane that has 6 engines when 4 give you plenty of excess safety cushion, or 2. They can fly an airplane on 1 engine just fine. Imagine if every airplane had to have 6 engines, what the cost of travel would be for the rest of us. It's the same thing. You want to design, engineers get it. I mean, they want to be sensible and they want to be efficient too. And so we never have, except that one situation, we never have a case where engineers don't like what we're doing and don't want to promote efficient, optimized designs.
How do you, so, I'm trying, so again, all this is fantastic. Former recovering general contractor here. What I'm interested in is who's your ideal customer, right? Is it a GC? Is it a structural engineering firm? But how and who do we interact with the software with, or who's leading that charge, or do you see structural engineers resistant to it? But you've got some GCs that are like, no, I want to run everything through this because I have so much success in saving schedule, saving budget here. Can you give me sort of like a boots on ground how companies based on discipline are interacting with the software?
Sure. So we sell to GCs, we sell to engineers, and we sell to owners, and then
Mm-hmm.
we sell to fabricators.
Mm-hmm.
So, and even some detailers. So really, we'll sell to anybody.
Okay.
But the owner gets the biggest bang for the buck because they save the time, they get their building commissioned sooner, and they start making money off of their project, and that's where probably the most value is. And so we like selling the owner, because it's fewer people to convince. If you go down the ladder, and we often do, and then we find that the GC is having to sell the owner on our behalf because they have the relationship, or in some cases the engineer is selling the owner because they have the relationship, and
Correct.
that's fine too. We're ambidextrous in terms of who's using the software. We like to sell the early connected model because it's 100% delivered. We have, control over it. Nobody needs to learn the software. We know it better than anybody else. We can deliver a lot of value when we deliver the 100% connected model. And then we hand it over to the GC, who hands it over to the fabricator, who then can use our software for free to make, and a lot of people don't know this, we let them use our software to make, any changes that they want after the handover. And that can be, super valuable to them. They might say, oh, I like the delivery, but I like my connections to look like this because of the way my shop is set up. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you can now use our software and reconnect, everything that that you want to. It doesn't happen much, to tell you the truth,
Mm-hmm.
because they like also to see a fully ready to go product.
Mm-hmm.
But they can, and they can do it selectively in areas that they think that they can, add value, etc. So yeah, they benefit in a number of ways. Of course, they save bolts, they save time, they get better throughput in their shop, depending on how they connect things. The erection goes up faster because we'll often recommend extended shear plates when they make sense for the number of weld passes, etc. And we can, we connect it both ways, so we can look how many weld passes does it take for this plate in order for it to be an extended shear plate, and not have too many bolts to throw the cost in another direction. And so we create all this data. It's what it's all about. It's kind of where the world is headed. everything boils down to data. Um, and then you use that data. But we like delivering the 100% connected model because we're so familiar with what the software can do and how it can improve the project, and we often find early VE opportunities working with the engineer. We work closely with the EOR. You know, we make changes that they want. We make changes. Sometimes we suggest changes based on what we know the software is capable of, and it's a lot of value being created.
Well, and we talk frequently on this podcast about the need for tech in the industry to have domain expertise kind of integrated into their go-to-market and implementation delivery. And
Hmm.
so you mentioned services, and why was that important? Like, talk to me how you started with software and then now you're adding service. How has that helped you, I guess, do what you're describing in terms of add value, even outside of your platform?
Yeah, sure. So, for one, we've got a lot of domain expertise on staff. My co-founder and partner Henry Letterman's been in the business for nearly 50 years. Um, and he's seen a lot. And we realized that if we deliver 100% of the connected model, that it'll be easier to sell, and we won't have to train as much because we'll be, handling and managing
Hmm.
all of the use of the software. The software takes most projects to about 75%, and then conventionally, we have to get to 100% using, our team of software engineers and detailers. But if we were having this, talk a year ago, we would have been at 70%, not 75. A year from now, we'll be at 80%. So as time goes on, we will get closer and closer to 100%, and that's our goal, and that's what we're driven to try to achieve. And that comes from getting a lot of input from the people that we work with, from the fabricators, from the engineers, to make the product better and better, so that that will increase speed, that will improve cost. The higher we get as a percent, the we could sure have higher margins, but we want to give that money back to the customer,
Hmm.
whether it's the owner, the GC, the
Yeah.
EOR, the fabricator, and that way, they'll want our product even more. And so, yeah, your question was about delivering services. Um, yeah, I'd say that sort of covers it. It's just delivering 100% and not necessarily having, Oh, and it's also just to get people familiar. I mean, we wanted to seed the market, or have a catalyst for the market to understand our software and our company and what we're doing, and how much value there is. And if we can walk them through that by, doing all the analytics ourselves, sometimes even in the early schematic design stage, um, we show them sort of what the possibilities are, and then as we get into DD, we start working with the engineer and creating the model early. We connect everything. We show them where there might be issues. They say, "Oh, great, thanks for telling me. Why don't we fix this by increasing the size of this member," or whatever they do. Um, they're amazing, and they come up with incredible creative solutions. But we give them insight into what they can do to make the project better. And I think
Hmm.
that's a really important, uh, you know, uh, uh, important thing that we do for early connected models, and getting involved, as early as we can.
Not, I'm certainly not a structural engineer, but in my experience, I've noticed that, different parts of the country can sometimes have their own like design nuances. Like if you're building a, tower in Chicago, or, a high rise in Florida, or call it in a seismic area, there's different structural engineering approaches. How does your solution take into account that, or are you not finding that at all? Like, think about like state specific code, right?
We follow the AISC code,
Okay.
for the United States, and we have CISC for Canada, and we've done quite a bit of work on European code as well.
Okay.
Um, but we're not finding, I mean, sure, there are geographical differences on how, people like to work. And so
Mm-hmm.
we've designed the software to be ultra flexible. I mean,
Okay.
you go in, if you're using our software as a service and you want to just use it yourself, we'll train you, we'll show you how to do it. It takes, about 4 or 5 hours of training, and then you're an expert. I mean, it's really not that hard. But what we train you on is how to fill out the preferences. So it's
Right.
preference driven, so that we reflect all of the preferences of the engineer, the fabricator, um, uh, you know, um, and the project itself. And so you look at the design drawings, you pull what data you can from those, you make sure that we are covering all of the issues that come up in those design drawings by filling out the preferences in such a way. And then, once you've done that, and it takes about an hour, sometimes less. And if you've worked with us before, it takes seconds, because
Right.
if you want to just repeat, just copy your design preferences to the next job, that just takes a
Mm-hmm.
second. But once you have those design preferences filled out, then you know that every single connection is going to be consistent with those preferences for the length of the job.
Love it.
You could give it to one detailer to 10 detailers that you just have to say to them, you got to use this software if you're going to work for me. And we've seen that a number of times. And so everything's consistent. I mean, it eliminates variables. If you eliminate variables, you eliminate risk.
Yeah.
And by the way, you eliminate cost as well, and you eliminate time constraints. And so it works great all over the United States, all over Canada, and before long we'll be in Europe and other parts of the world.
I love that. And I love the idea of services allowing you to drive towards outcomes, right? And I think, people at the project level, when I was in that seat, I I wanted to buy outcomes, right? Even when I was talking to vendors or on the tech side.
Yeah,
And I think the kind of
right.
incorporation of services really helps you to do that. What is you've been in the industry driving Qnect for the last 10 years. Are there things from your other industries that you interact with that you've kind of taken and borrowed, like mental frameworks or mental models? Like for example, I've found myself, I was in a tech seat for a bit, and the one big thing I took away was just like product thinking, understanding the way in which to, drive towards quick feedback, the way to incorporate that into a delivery cycle. Like, are there other frameworks that you've used or takeaways from the other industries that you've applied to how you've approached construction?
Yeah, there are. We build this knowledge database you know, as we get older, and I hope we all are using some of that experience and that knowledge from past, if you're in the same industry or different industries. I have to take a little sideline here and just say, Stephen, one of the funniest, best posts I ever saw on social media was your post about washing your own dishes, and yeah, that was beautiful,
Well, and
and
there's a part two to that I should post about, which is my youngest, Xavier, is now washing and loading the dishwasher,
nice.
and I've been trying to instruct him in my method rather than maybe my wife's method, but yeah, it can be chaos.
So my first job was as a dishwasher now,
Yeah, I mean, we need to
and
get some
and
expertise from the expert.
well, you need to get expertise from my investor, who was my first boss, because he is the master, and he if you learn to you tell your son, if you learn to wash dishes well, you can be a great success in life, because
Interesting.
there's so much to being smart and efficient about the smallest thing. And if you're
Mm.
smart and efficient about the smallest thing, then as you get older and as you apply that to different bigger and bigger things, it comes through. um, I'm trying to think of another example. My whole thought about excess capacity came from my screen printing company when I was living in New York. And I had a lot of expensive screen printing equipment, and it wasn't always working, and I was having to pay the lease whether it worked or not. Um, and so I thought, well, why not, make that visible somehow to other screen printers. So I did sort of a non-software, um, you know, uh, version of that, and just by calling people the old-fashioned way, and yeah, there was something here, and so I applied that to my excess capacity software company, and
Yeah.
of course I've applied it to this business too. There's um, there's inefficiencies all over the place, and we have something called one station optimization that came from my experience at my screen printing company, and that is staging is everything. And if you stage things and plan things well, then you save time, you save money, you save grief, you save mistakes. And so staging, planning have definitely been applied to the thinking of what we've designed for Qnect in our software. And if we had more time, I'd go into exactly how that works. But it's pretty cool. It saves a lot of time.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to talk to you about the kind of the investment side of the game, because I think there are many entrepreneurs out there, I think like myself, like I love the idea of building. I hate the idea of going and trying to raise money, right? Like going to, like, it's, well, I was a Cutco salesman back in the day, and while I was able to have some success, I never really enjoyed that, right? I never really enjoyed kind of knocking on doors.
Friends and family don't count as success, Stephen. Okay.
That's all it was.
Hey,
You
hey,
get,
friends and family are really important. Don't downplay them.
No
I
doubt,
would,
no doubt.
I wouldn't be here today, and none of my businesses would have survived without them. So, anyway, go
So
ahead.
you're 10 years into this. Like, what should other founders maybe take from your experience in terms of maybe what to watch out for when taking investment, what to do? What are your thoughts?
Sure. So I like to raise money as needed. Some people think differently. Some people say, raise a lot of money in the beginning and then it gives you long, runway. But then I found that, and I've been through this. This is, not my first rodeo. I found that if you raise too much money, you don't spend it as wisely.
hmm
Um, because you sort of get a little spoiled. And so my recommendation would be to raise a little bit more than you need, because you always need more than you think you need. But don't get too crazy, and that way you preserve the some of the equity, as much of the equity as you can for yourself. Because when you raise money, you're basically exchanging the equity in your company for that money, and that's you're here to build value for yourself and your employees if you're generous with shares, and you don't want to necessarily give it away to the venture capital world. And so yeah, you have to find the right balance. Raise as little as you can, and if you have something great, it's no problem raising more. Well, I shouldn't say it's no problem. You have to go back to the market and meet people. But if you have a good story and you're creating good value, then there's plenty of people out there that are willing to back you. Turner Ventures is a new entree in the market, but Turner's been investing in innovation for decades, right? But now they have something that formalizes it more. Suffolk is another one. There's a number of them now that have venture arms, and they're the other thing that I would suggest to entrepreneurs is think about strategic investors. They understand the problems quicker. Um, they might be able to help in other ways, mentor you, give you a lab in the field to try your product on, etc. And so those are great options if you've got a good idea to make the construction industry more efficient.
What about you've got kind of the generalist VCs, the big boys that are kind of industry agnostic versus maybe some of the we'll call them strategic VCs in the industry. They both seem to maybe have the different value that they offer. I do still see often, even with what we call maybe the industry VCs, there being an orientation to the flashy and the sexy solutions or even sexy problems rather than maybe some of the solutions that aren't easily understood, right? And it might be that helping, early, connected model visibility isn't that sexy, right? And so how do you deal and navigate that in the kind of investment conversation?
Well, you're right. I mean, I never went to Silicon Valley like I have with past companies to meet with the largest and the most, the Andreessens of the world,
Hmm.
the Kleiner Perkins of the world, the largest VCs. You can go to Sand Hill Road and you can do your dog and pony show there, but you know, you better have, a multi-billion dollar opportunity or they're just not going to be interested because you might have a
Hmm.
great idea and you probably do. And if you have enough tenacity to see it through, it'll get to market and you'll make a lot of money. But it's yeah, they have a formula and some of the industry types, um, the strategic venture arms are a little bit more patient and understand, sort of what you need to do because they understand the market. They understand that it's, maybe slow to change,
Hmm.
and uh, and they understand that you need, to have traction, on a certain number of projects before it really takes off. And so, yeah, that would that would there's a big difference between the two. Uh, the strategics, will sit on your board, but maybe not give you quite as much heartache because they understand things better that you're going through. And a strictly financial VC, what do they care most about? They care most about the numbers, and you can't blame them. That's their job. They're there to return money to their limited partners who give them money to invest. And so, that's just their frame of mind. They're two different things, and they're both great, depending on what your idea is, how fast it can scale, and how sure you are you can hit your milestones. Um, Anybody wants to talk to me about it, I'm always happy to meet with entrepreneurs and give them free advice for whatever that's worth.
I was hoping your investment strategy was going to be rebrand your URL with .ai and uh, and then just leave it to the market.
Everyone's doing it. Everyone's doing it.
Well, that's it's a trend, yeah. And remember what happened to the .comers when it was dogfood.com and everything else. It's yeah, there's some hype around it, and that can help you get money now. But what you really need to succeed is somebody who's in it for the long term, and that's somebody who, doesn't fall prey to, every shiny object that comes around.
Yeah.
Well
Well, maybe
said.
it's a decent segue into the AI category, um, because when you think about your solution, whether it's algorithm or AI, what it allows teams right now is to have maybe visibility and answers that they otherwise wouldn't have. But as you look at building out the roadmap for your product and your company, um, maybe one, clarifying a bit about how that back end is architected and then two, how AI is starting to inform what you guys build out.
Yeah. So we did an experiment, and we went to, I think, three of the AI engines. I don't remember. It was ChatGPT, Copilot, Grok, whatever it was. and we asked them the same question. We said, we prompted them, look at everything online about Qnect and tell us if we're already AI. And 2 out of 3 said that we were.
There
So
you go.
so are we an AI company? According to AI, we're an AI company. We've delivered, we use AI all the time, not only in the development, the software development, the coding, but we use it on the business side, the marketing,
Mhm.
researching. It's great for research. I mean, you can do a research project in an hour that would take a week.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, it's here to stay. It's a tool. I don't think it's going to put, the world out of work. It's going to create work
Yeah.
because there's so much more that we can do now that we have this tool.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be different from any other technology leap as far as that goes. People need to be adaptable, they need to be flexible and open, and they need to learn as much as they can about AI because it's here. You can't say, I don't think the internet's going to do anything for me. You may have said, a friend of mine said this, 25 years ago. I'm never going to use the internet. Same thing with AI. It's real and it's very valuable, and we're the first people to start using it. They're going to enjoy the benefits of doing so longer, and it's a good. I mean, it's like any technology, like ours. Some people are quick to adopt new technology. Some technology, it's easier to understand why they should. ChatGPT came out of the gates, and I think it was the fastest adoption of any new technology ever
Mhm.
because it was so obvious. But we have a technology too that's less obvious. But for somebody who understands construction and understands the workflows that we're improving, it should be super obvious. And so, yeah, if you're wondering whether or not to use Qnect in your job, go to AI and ask it, and see what kind of response you get. I'd be curious to find out what happens.
Yeah, that's a good little marketing gimmick. It's like, yeah, plug in. You could even have that like an integrated modal into Qnext's site. Like plug in
Yeah.
your project details and have AI to tell you whether or not it's applicable.
Hey, Stephen,
Um,
there's a business there, and all the entrepreneurs who are listening, you know, grab that little nugget and start a business and do it for people. That'd be cool.
so, so AI is kind of integrated into workflows in terms of how you operate the business, how you guys kind of go to market. But from a product standpoint, and I'm sure some of this is like, between some kind of behind some IP paywall, but like how, I mean, we've all read a variety of content around AI, and I'm probably still in the doomer camp in terms of my kind of ultimate outlook. Lars, I forget, are you a doomer? You believe, where's your perspective on?
No, I'm probably more in the Jeff realm,
Yeah,
but it's not as simple as the user has to be educated enough, not just
yeah,
on AI, but also the topic, right? We can't just blindly be operating and, just asleep behind the wheel.
yeah.
So again, there's a responsibility, there's ethics involved. So I think it's fantastic. I mean, just I'll never forget the time that my dad took me to the library. It was like one of the first book reports or study reports I ever did, and like I mean, we were like were those like little the Dewey Decimal System,
Yeah,
microfiche. I mean,
yeah.
like this is so much more engaging, right? And and again, I'm going deep with this one, but like I said, my son has electives next year in school, and one of them was AI. I'm like 100%. You got just start right now, and that's going to be in eighth grade. Like
Mm,
just start understanding this amazing tool
wow,
to
that's cool.
interact and get information at like lightning speed,
And
right? Lightning
kids and
speed. So
kids are
I
like
love it.
amazing, right? They
Yeah.
suck this stuff up and it'll just become like drinking water to them.
Right. And, and
And
and and and we all had those stages when we were kids in sucking it up when parents or grandparents, like, oh, I'll never use the internet, right? No, I'll never use touch phone. I'm only going to use rotary, right? Like I'm good,
right.
right? Like there's always been these, advancements, but clearly we're on hockey stick, right? It's just insane how fast things are moving. So, yeah, I'm a believer. I think it is fantastic, but again, I think there is still this responsibility that we can't. What was it? We can't turn into the movie Idiocracy, frankly, right?
Yeah.
Like recliner, like Mountain Dew all day long or whatever. Like we have to engage. We've got to be smart.
But I think that's where, and I agree. I think you started hinting at the fact that like you can't talk about AI as a monolith, right? It's like an industry. It's a ton of different things, right? But I think if we look at the studies done on brain plasticity and the understanding that having a phone in our hands for the last 20 years has materially impacted our brain structure, pull the thread on that and think about as we interact with ChatGPT that is able to fill in all these gaps in our thinking, what does that do to our brain structure and
Yeah.
neural pathways in 10 years? Like I think there's that part, but then I also, we've and we're going down another path, but like if you think about what we've done with technology, GPS has both helped me get to everywhere I need to go and not really need to know
Where I'm
directionally
going
anything, right?
at the same
Uh,
time.
but also we use GPS to like drop missiles on like an ant's head, right? And so like I think
Mm.
technology there's always a positive and a negative to how we leverage technology because we're
Yeah. Great
people
point.
and there's like there's a humanity element here. Um, but I think going back to your point about kids in I think we're at a point where it's already changed how I operate, and so they do need to be exposed to it in ways that can give them a picture of what's possible, right?
No, totally agree. And the industry, I mean, the construction industry, has a shortage of labor, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's a well-known fact. And so the tool that can help, get things done faster, better, um, with less time, that allows you to go with your kids to the beach in the evening instead of, pounding something
Yeah.
out at the office. I mean, that's pretty cool, and it will allow all of us to drive things forward. Projects will probably get more complicated somehow because of
Correct.
AI. And it will need more of us managing the AI or something. And yeah, Xavier is going to be just fine. Xavier, right? um
Yeah, that's right.
he's going to be just fine because he's sucking it up early. He's I mean, who do you go to if you need to fix your computer? Well, maybe your kids are a little too young, but I go to my teenager. uh,
Yeah.
because she's a digital native.
Yeah.
And it comes so easy to her. And I think the same thing is going to be true with AI. But in the meantime, it's a challenge for all of us, and let's look at it as a fun challenge and a productivity thing that we can bring to our workplace and our
Yep.
teams, and teach other people how to do it. I love telling people, like, what I did with AI. It's so fun. And then now they know, and if you do that every day and then they teach somebody else, then it won't take long before everybody knows about it. I want to just mention that my uh, my office mate here was in San Francisco last week, and she took her first driverless taxi. And I was like, "Well, what do you think? Were you scared? Was it a little weird?" And she was like, "Well, a little bit, but I was looking at everything that was going on the screen, and it was very clear what the taxi was doing and what it would see, and how it would react if there was something weird cutting in front of it or a person in the way or whatever." And after a while, I just got really comfortable with it. And the fact of the matter is, statistically,
Yeah.
driverless cars cause fewer accidents.
Yeah.
um, you just don't want to be in one yourself. But once that gets down to a really tiny statistic, it just won't make sense for anybody to have a car anymore. And that day is coming.
It is coming, and I think it's coming here sooner rather than later. There's some stuff here in San Diego with redevelopment, high density stuff. We've got a housing crisis here in California, right? And they're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. But one of the biggest challenges is, well, do we have to park it, or do we invest in infrastructure? Because for say rapid transit, trolleys, trains, knowing that there's probably going to be a building, say 20 miles away, that is storing all of these, driverless or autonomous vehicles that will pick people up and just coordinate, like think just coordination at mass scale, moving
Yeah.
bodies. And I don't need a car anymore. And I don't want to deal with oil changes. I don't want to deal with balancing tires, rotating. Like, I don't want any of that stuff in my life anymore. Sign
Yeah,
me up.
really, really great point. And that's what the construction industry needs is sort of some master coordination, concept. Start a business that's just orchestrates everything. And who knows where that could go. I mean, yeah,
What was the one that started out of Silicon Valley for the
Tara?
manufacturing? Yeah, that one. Didn't go so well. But
Maybe,
Jeff, I like where your head's at, and
yeah,
I do.
baby steps as you're creating the next Katera.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. No, no, it doesn't always work, but they push the envelope, right? And
Hmm.
so I've had failures, my
Yeah.
startups, and I learn more from the failures than the successes. You push the envelope, and it's fun, and if anybody has, sort of and a lot of people do. I think there are more entrepreneurs out there than we realize, but they're closet entrepreneurs, right? They just don't quite want to take the leap. But jump in, take the plunge. You know, um, I was in Alaska last summer and I jumped in, off of a glacier into the ocean. Probably
Wow.
not the smartest thing to do, but
Well done.
yeah, it's cold and it shocks you in the beginning, but afterwards it's so invigorating. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, my ideas were flowing. I should move to Alaska and do that more often.
I, I'm like
Pole
that too.
dance,
It's
man.
like the water was
Jeff, we
cold
can
here.
do this for
I
you.
felt I felt alive. I need to move to Alaska. Like that's it. I'm
Yeah,
moving.
that's the
Let's do
solution.
That's it.
let's
I'm
do
Not.
moving.
let's do a podcast from a glacier.
Yeah.
I like it.
Um,
uh,
Uh, Jeff, one of the things I love the entrepreneurial journey that you've talked about. I love the give back that you sort of shared earlier. I mean, again, being inspired washing dishes, right? Let's be honest. That is a testament to how you're wired, your personality, and the passion and like drive that you've been wired with. What a gift. If you could like rewind in time, right? Whether it's your 14-year-old self, 16, 18-year-old self, what would you share? Knowing now what you know, all the experiences you've been through, like, and that entrepreneurial drive you have, what would you share with your younger self?
Um, my younger self. Um, don't be afraid to have confidence. Don't be afraid to be creative. Don't be afraid to speak your mind. Get out, pretend you're older than you are. Um, um, grown-ups don't know everything. They don't know as much as you think they know. Sometimes you need to, take a stance, and teach somebody along the way. Teach somebody something every day, and you'll learn more than they do.
it is
Fantastic.
fascinating. I love that, and I know we run low on time, but
Mhm.
like I was reading, there was a study done on just if you look throughout history, um, the quantity of people that have done amazing things before they were like 30 years old. And this isn't like to say you can't do anything after that, but there is something about your
There's still hope
brain.
for me, Stephen.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, like your brain isn't fully developed till you're like
Yeah.
28, right? And so by lacking certain like fear of failure structures in your brain actually
Mm,
enables you to do a lot of different things, right? And
There's
it
a lot.
speaks to this point of like if even if you have that, it kind of ignore it because it's like it's a false structure.
It,
yeah,
it, it- well said.
right.
There's a lot of science on like the different personality types and how different personality types are more, comfortable with risk or risk adverse, right?
Yeah.
And there is sort of innate structures that we have, but I love, it is interesting how those external influences, as you are growing in those years, can sort of bend the stick one way, right? Make you more risk adverse, or hey, Uncle Jeff says it's going to be okay. Like, I'm going to go be a dishwasher, or I'm going to go mow lawns, or I'm just going to go do it because he says it's going to be okay, and he's got my back.
Yeah, well, you got to give kids confidence and respect them and trust them and
Yeah.
and let them do the work. And I was at a college with my daughter, going on a tour, showing her some different colleges to look at, and one of the presidents came out and said, "Never underestimate what an 18-year-old can do." And it's true.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
they can achieve more because I don't know, they're crazy. They haven't been constrained yet
They're
with some of the
crazy. Yeah,
they
Yeah.
they
they
are.
don't have a mortgage to worry about,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's brilliant. And so, but then they're also, nervous and insecure and all of that thing that comes along with growing up. And so, yeah, to take someone in, even just one person, and to mentor them, is a huge give back
Mm.
that, you'll get more from than they will.
Yeah. Oh, I know we're running out of time here, Jeff. Where are some ways that people can connect with you and Qnect?
Well, I mentioned, reach out to me if you want to start a business, if you want some, advice. I love talking about the early days. My phone number is 413-896-1367. You know,
Burr, burr. We'll
send,
bleep that out.
send me, how many followers did you say you have?
25 million, no big deal.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
It just
I'm
grew too.
I'm on LinkedIn. Text me first. I'm on LinkedIn. Our website is www.qnect.com, and
Soon to be .ai.
soon to be .ai. And yeah, I'd love to connect in some way. And I have a team that would love to connect to, a lot of talented people that you don't do it alone. You do it with a team, and I've got amazing partners, amazing employee teammates, investors,
100%.
advisors. Even you guys. You guys are amazing. So I mean, you're in my network, and you just don't do it alone. You
Yep.
need to build that network,
Well said.
and I'm happy to be a part of yours.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you coming on, Jeff. This was fun.
Thank
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you.
certainly. Thanks, guys.
All right, see ya.
All right, take care.